everyone. I'm so sorry about what just happened. You guys wouldn't believe me if I told you what just happened. You guys would be so disappointed. Sorry, Ty, I'm just gonna connect you back, okay? You guys would be so disappointed in Canada. But let me see if I can connect back. Sorry about
I almost thought you were in Nigeria for a minute. Like, did NEPA just take right?
what just happened. So disappointed. All you must be thinking about the light. My light went off, my net went off. Now I'm just using my data.
Okay.
But what I'm gonna say is I'm very sure you're gonna bring the light back. So embarrassing. I'm so embarrassed for my country. But anyway, sorry about that. Speaking back from where we were talking about how to prepare for the interview, and you were talking about how you had like a notebook. It's so funny because I feel like it's so similar to me. I also had a book.
Yeah.
I wish I had it so I can do a screenshot and send it to people. But I was feeling what you were saying. So if you just pick it up from there, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
If people have questions, because some people already sent their questions, because very soon we're going to take questions. We're kind of like rounded up already. So if you have questions, you can use the comment box or the chat box, and then I'll see your questions there. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so like we were saying, like just where we left off, I wasn't sure exactly if everybody heard. So like the book was very helpful. That was we're able to just make sure we had you can remember everything basically, and then you also have to research the school you want to go to, because most schools will also ask you why you choose that school, and then the reason why you want to research the school goes beyond just knowing more about the school. You want to give an answer that's not generic, because everybody probably just say the same thing basically. So what I tended to do was I would find somebody who's in that school and say, okay, question for you would be, what about your school do you know now that you didn't know when you were applying? Because that sets you apart, for example, because if the person can tell you about something about the school right now, and then that they didn't know when they were applying, then what that means is when you tell that to somebody who is in the school, then the person feels that, oh, this person definitely knows more about the school than going on Google and just saying, tell me about the school, stuff like that. So it's always good to like research your school and what those kind of things are. And then, like I said, questions you'll probably ask, those are questions you like generate. Every other thing will be, I like during my sessions with interview preparation sessions, the big thing we learned was, your responses tailor how your interview is going to go. So you want to make sure you're not setting questions for yourself. You want to make sure you're setting questions, you're leading them to somewhere where you want to, you're comfortable going. You don't want to take them to somewhere where they ask you a question and you're stuck. So always, making sure you're leaving your answers at a cliffhanger, which only allows them to ask you a question that you're expecting at the next. So that always definitely helped.
And I'm happy that you mentioned that, because it's very, you're absolutely right, because I know that one thing I used to do during my time was add ideas, again, research, just like you said. So I did my research, try to find out type of like common questions. I'll go on YouTube, try to find out like common questions they would ask. I'll write it on my jotter, and then I wrote my templates. I'll go over it over and over again, sure that my answer made sense to me. And then I would tell my husband, tell people. I had a big sis then, so he used to prep me. And then every morning or evening, I would go over those templates. As in, I was beginning to act like a crazy person, but I understood
it's necessary.
And go into that interview with confidence.
Yeah, exactly.
The question, and you're not stuttering and you're trying to like, oh, what do I want to say here? And one thing I always tell people is go in there with a game plan. Know already beforehand what about you or your application you want to sell to these people. So I'm happy that you mentioned that you already have like a template and a format. Is there anything else you want to chip in before we get into like the Q&A sessions?
No, not really. I guess maybe we'll get more from the question. When it comes questions coming, we can probably jump in and get more stuff.
All right, perfect. So I guess the first question says, were there any clinical questions, like any dental questions in any of the schools?
Okay, yeah. So let me just do a run out of the school. So I already mentioned about Loma Linda. So Loma Linda had a bench test first. and
Okay.
then there was a personal interview. So during the personal interview, there were no clinical question. It was just admin staff. Well, there was a doctor, correction. There was a dentist who was in that interview and the director of admin. But yeah, they didn't ask me any clinical question. It was just about general questions. I guess for them, it's probably the bench test already took care of your clinical experience and your dentistry basically.
Yeah.
For the other two schools, however, it was different. Like for UCLA, so UCLA's interview was over Zoom. So there were two parts to it. There was a personal interview. So the first part of it was about maybe 15 minutes or 20 thereabout of having a one-to-one personal interview, asking you about yourself and stuff like that. And at the end of it, what they did in our own time was there was a session where they showed you up some slides of some clinical scenarios basically, and they said, this is this and this. So like for example, they showed me up an X-ray of somebody and said, what are your plans? What treatment plans would you give? So there was a dental component to that one basically, and they would judge you based on your interview and your dental component of how you responded to the questions. And the questions they asked me, there wasn't any particular question. So they showed me this picture, give me a clinical scenario, and then they asked me the questions verbally. So the questions that I found, some of them were initial questions, but the subsequent questions were stemmed up from the answers I gave. So like, for example, say, oh, you want to use this crown. What are your reasons for using that crown to do this restoration? Stuff like that. So that was about that. For USC, it was slightly different. So USC is, USC was a different school. And I kind of like enjoyed their own format too. So USC had an MMI, so it's multiple mini interviews. And so basically what that means is like you have this video, assessment basically. It's just like, so if you've done Casper, something like Casper or a Snapshot, something like that. So it's like Kira Talent too, something like that. I think they do it on Kira Talent anyways.
Questions, and then they record your response.
Exactly. So you have the questions pop on the screen. They give you 1 minute to think about the answers, and then you speak into the camera or whatever it is, and you give them your answers. And then there was the second part of it. So there were two parts. There was one part which was MMI, and then there was the second part on a different day that was the PBL. So PBL, I think for me, I was happy about the PBL because we were used to PBLs from Nigeria and like from anatomy, Dr. Remusu, and we had this PBL knowledge already from anatomy back home. So there was a group. They were divided into groups. So there was group A1, B1, 2-1, whatever it was, and then you guys will be you'll be in a chat room together with your other group members, and you guys will be given a clinical case. And to give you a clinical case, and then it was very interactive. Well, the expectation, because they will tell you, we want this to be an interactive session. We don't want one person to usurp the other. We want it to be an interaction between you all. So they asked you the questions, and then we had a scribe, somebody who was typing the answers in the chat box. We had somebody who was asking the questions, and then we were switching roles at every point in time. So, and that's how USC actually have their learning format. They are a PBL-based school, so they don't do a lot of classroom formats. They do a lot of group study, give you guys the research to do, come back in and discuss it together with your professors and stuff like that. So that's something to research if you were researching USC. So that was how those ones format. So they had also clinical during the MMI, if I'm correct. Yes, correct. During the MMI also there was generic questions, ethical questions, and there were also dental questions too. For example, they showed a picture of a model and said, oh, what quadrant is this, that kind of thing. So you have to identify stuff like that. So there were clinical components in there in the MMI, and then the PBL was a group kind of learning kind of distribution for us.
Perfect. Now that you answer that question, I just realized that did you hear this, that LLU has this during our time, I guess because we had our interview via Zoom, but sets that had the interview in person, they would have this session where they would give them like a topic or a clinical scenario, and then they'll be like
asking them questions. Yeah. Yeah.
And I heard that, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So just we're going for the interview this year, you just might have it. Just like COVID has kind of lifted, maybe in some countries more than others. Example, Canada is still sleeping on it, but anyways, a situation where you have it, where they give like a clinical case. They're like, we want to hear your opinion, for example, Dan, we want to hear your opinion, Tayo, and then we're having like a back and forth. I can't believe I forgot to mention that during my session, because I did the LLU session. But since you also went to LLU, I just wanted to like chip that in so that you guys
Yeah, I think for early to the in previous years, we've also had the interview right around the same time, especially for those from out of country. Around the
Okay.
same time, you have the bench. So we don't know if that's going to come back again this year. But previously, they will have it like if you have your bench on a Sunday, they will say stick around for a couple more days, just because your interview will be a couple more days after, maybe like Monday or Tuesday afterwards. So yeah, that could happen. So with COVID, like you said, with COVID changing everything now, some schools I know have are thinking that this format's worked for us in the previous years. We don't have to bring them down physically. We can can do our assessment this way. But I guess some schools, and LLU is top of that list, are very traditional. Like they like the feel good experience. So
Yeah.
they probably will bring you back in. Even at the height of COVID, when everybody was locked down, LLU
Yeah.
made people come down for the bench. So
Yeah.
that will be changing anytime soon.
Go, go like, to the that's yeah.
Yeah.
We're very to the book, do things the right way. That's one thing I love about LLU. Not that other schools were doing the wrong. So
Yeah.
and I'm happy you mentioned that, because so that people that are going for the interviews can plan ahead, like
Mhm.
your flight and everything. Like just plan that. Just don't think it's just the one day.
Yeah.
You know, I have it somewhere you have your interview like immediately. So you just factor all that in. And for people who are coming from far, you can always email the schools. Like, you can email and ask them, oh, how do you plan for like your accommodation and things like that. Some of them even always give an idea of where to stay in terms of your accommodation. They can also give an idea of how long you should stay, maybe how long you should even come before.
Yeah.
They're nice, they're not scary people. So you can always email the schools, and also access as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is there anything else you wanted to add, or that was just it?
That's just it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So all right. So funny enough, someone asked a question here. How are you able to how are you- and there is a question too. How easy is it to get a loan?
Mhm. So I guess those two questions are probably one and the same. So I'll probably act them together. And
Yeah.
my answer will be, that's a big question. And my solution will be the biggest thing is getting to school. Like I'm a Christian, so we have a saying that God has brought you so far, will see it to completion. So if God says that's what's going to happen for you, you're going to figure it out. And that's just to give you the positive side of it. And the negative side of it, it's difficult, honestly, especially if you are from out of country. Like if you're a US citizen or a green card holder, it's probably easier because you can access the FAFSA loans,
Yeah.
and you don't need anybody to apply. But for every other person, you either need a co-signer who is a green card holder or a citizen to get a decent loan from a loan credit union in the US, which have lower interest because of the fact that you have this guarantor doing that co-signing for you, and there'll be disappointments because people, it's a lot of money, so people are skeptical about committing themselves into those kind of big
Yeah.
amounts. There's pros and cons for everything, and then there's no one size fits all for everybody, but there
Yeah.
are lots of options. That's the thing. There are even non interest and collateral for, like, for example, in one of my terms, I took a prodigy loan, which was I didn't need any collateral because my other co-signer fell through,
Okay.
and I took a prodigy loan for the first bit, basically, and they didn't need a collateral, but it was a higher interest rate, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, once you getting in is the hardest part. Like
Mm-hmm.
once you get in, everything just like falls into place, and there are always options. And the thing I find also is that the schools are very supportive too.
Yeah.
So once you get in there, you're having challenges with your, funding and everything. Talk to your financial aid director. See, this is my situation. Like some schools have funding that they give. Like for example, my school has that, capability. It's not as accessible as it could be, but there are ways around it. They give you a loan for a fixed amount, interest rate, and you can get that too. And I know a lot of schools have those kind of options where they can, but like I said, funding. If you think about funding right now, when you're thinking about getting in, you just like so. Get into school, every
Yeah.
other thing will just fall into place, and there are lots of options you can have.
And that's great advice, because I don't know if I told you this. I had written my part one like a while back. And
Yeah.
I think around the time when I was writing the Canadian exams, and then the reason why I stopped was because I started thinking about the loan process. I was like, God, but like, you know, and I'm so happy you mentioned Tony, because 22 was my ginger, was the person that
Yeah.
like just like Tony was the person that really like pushed, like, that right, something about the loan, and I
Yeah.
was begrudgingly wrote the second exam, and then I spoke to my husband about it, and it was like, let's just give it a try. And you're right, like
Exactly.
this solutions just come from, um it's a walk in the park, but like solutions will come, solutions will come. Have there been people who were not able to get the loan? Yes. Have there been people that were able to get the loan? Yes. So it just depends on how you look at it, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then, all right, so this person is asking, okay, let me just take one from here, and then does having an MPH to your name increase your GPA or chances of getting in?
I don't have an MPH, so I would say that, like, the thing is, like, I think is, as much as you can get, as much as you can put to your CV to increase your potential, you have to do it. But you have to work within. You have to work smart. That's the word. You have to be smart about it. You don't want to go invest $20,000 when you're thinking of a $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 loan in the future. You don't want to come out with more debt than you really need, basically. I have a classmate, for example, who is currently even still in the process of our MPH, basically, and some of us don't have. Some of us are fresh graduates. Some of us are older graduates, and every school will take a mix of everything. So it's not make or break that says you have to have an MPH. If you do have it, it's good for you, but you don't have to. If you don't have it, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right, because I don't have a master's too, and you're right, because in the sense that I also, when I came to Canada, I also didn't want to put too much of a debt on myself, because I knew that the final place, the school, was going to be a lot of debt already. So I didn't want to spend too much on things that I was trying to do to get into my final goal. So you're absolutely right. That was also my approach. And what I would say is, and another thing is, you did mention was, the classes are usually a good mix. So it's not that they will not say, okay, let's pick everybody that has masters or everybody that has life is all about balance. So
exactly.
they look at different things. I feel they look at different things in your resume. And one thing I always say, and one thing that other speakers have said before, is if you don't have a master's, or if you don't have something, you can always look for other ways to make up for it.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't have a master's, so I always put it at the forefront that, okay, I had social skills. Like, I had other things I was doing in school. I had a business when I was in Nigeria. I had leadership skills. I brought up different things, different qualities in my different things I was a part of that showed skills in my that will make good.
Exactly. Exactly. And it was the same for me too. Like, what you want to do is to amplify your strengths. If you feel that this is going to be a weakness for you, then you have a strength. Like for me, for example, I remember doing my LLU interview, and they asked me, I said, well, in the past, I've had leadership experience, and I feel those are very helpful. Like, I've been president of ULADs back in the days. I've been this. I worked under this. I worked as this and stuff like that. So you want to, like I said, and that's why I said during your interviews and stuff like that, you want to channel your interview towards where you want them to take you to. So the things they're only going to take you to what you talk about. So if you don't talk about it, they probably won't, but if you talk about it and say, I'm sad I didn't have an MPH, then they will ask you, why didn't you have an MPH? Stuff like that. So you want to challenge, and the same thing for your reason, anything you write to, you want to take the edge of the things that you don't have and amplify the strengths that you have. And once you do that, then it's a matter of, like, I'm putting myself out there. I'm telling you, I'm going to do this for you guys. Like, you guys, like, give them a reason to, like, say, what, this guy has to be in our school. He's going to bring so much positivity and stuff like that. So that's just how it is. You have to find the balance.
Okay, and I'm happy you just said something now. You said bring a lot of positivity. Like, you want to show things about you that will let them be like, okay, we want this cool. I know. So I don't know from other countries, but from our training in Nigeria, it was more of show less of your personality and show up as a professional, like a stoic person.
It doesn't work here.
My interview, I'm a very lively, bobby person, so I was kind of scared. I'm like, why don't I people come and think that? So, but when I saw that my interviewer was a very lively, bobby person, by then I relaxed and had forgotten that I wanted to act very professional.
Yeah, and that's what you find. The most of the programs here are more chill. Like, especially with interviews, you're chill, and they've read your academic achievements already in your CV. Most of them have, except if it's closed book. Most of them have. So they want to see you as a person. They want to see a different side of you that was not written in your paper. So you don't want to go recounting everything you wrote in your paper. You want to tell them that in addition to that, this is me, basically. So very important. And everybody's really chill here. Everybody's like very welcoming, and the worst that will happen is they will say, oh, we didn't like you. That's the worst, right? And then you move
Yeah.
on. But, you don't want to, like, one thing I always told myself during my application cycle is, I didn't want this cycle to end and then say to myself or have any regrets and said, if I had done this better, I would have had, maybe I would have had a different result. So
Okay.
I wanted to be able to say at the end of it and say, you know what, if it didn't work for me, I gave it one of my best. Perhaps I need to do more, basically. But,
Yeah.
you just have to leave it all out there. It's very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I'm happy that you ended with that. Perfect. So, I honestly, that was a great response, because that should be your approach. Like, let me just give it my all. Let me give it my all. And then this next question is saying, a lot of questions for you, Doctor. I can tell you. This is saying, can I apply directly from Nigeria, and what are my chances of getting
Um, that's a very good question. And like I said to you, like, every school have different criteria for what they want.
in?
And my answer will be yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely yes. For example, I know of someone who applied directly from their home country somewhere in I think it's either Asia or the Middle East or something, and they were also a recent graduate too. They weren't like, they didn't have like 10-year experience or whatever it is, and they applied directly. And the first time they were coming to the US was the time when they came to school, basically. But I think for those kind of, like, for example, if you're coming from Nigeria, I think one thing you have to like put it in there. One thing schools want to figure out basically is how you're going to blend your class, how you're going to afford the program, basically, and how to make sure that you're a team player in that kind of, because everybody, like, it's such a harmonious group they would like to have, basically. So they don't want anything that's going to be any barriers to that harmony in that class. They don't want to. So basically, if you're coming from something like Nigeria, for example, I know everybody probably knows that the exchange rate right now is like 1 to, so you probably have to have 2 billion naira to be able to afford your education here. So when you're writing your ISOPs and stuff like that, I want to think that you want to put those kind of things in there. Like, for example, if you're already in the US or you're in Canada, they know that there's so many opportunities you can get to fund it. But coming from a country like Nigeria or something like that's like a third world country or a developing country, whatever it is, you want to be able to let them know that in addition to being good enough or being a team player, you've done this project, you've handled this project, you've worked as a team, you paint the scenario where you told them that there was something happening in your project you were handling, and you did one abracadabra or whatever it is, and you solved the problem. And in addition to that, you have an aunt in the US who you are so excited to meet, who has promised to co-sign your loans or fund your education or whatever it is, so that they know that, because they're looking at you and saying you're coming from a disadvantaged place already. But they look at you and say, this person has assured us that if given this opportunity, you're going to take care of all these things, basically. Like I said, it's a diverse class. Every class is going to be diverse. So, if you're the one Nigerian, who knows, maybe you're going to be a Nigerian who, oh, let's try something from Nigeria this time around. So yes, from Nigeria, definitely apply. But, make sure you dot those T's and dot those I's and cross those T's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you're saying is actually someone in my class who applied directly from Nigeria. So yeah, that's a valid point. Like, let them, because the reason why that it's important for you to put in your statement of purpose that you have a plan as to how to pay for the tuition is because the worst thing that can happen is after they've selected their 30 candidates with all the work, then maybe 5 people.
Sorry, I can't take it up. Yeah.
So those are the things you have to think about. That, okay, let people know that you have a plan as to how to pay for the loan, like if you are given the opportunity. So I'm happy that you said that.
Yeah. And in addition to that, just to chip in also, is like what I also tell myself and my other friends, and I know I've mentioned that to Dami before too, and my other friends in LLU and other schools, is that we're kind of like ambassadors for Nigerians in other schools. Really, that's what we are, because our performance is either professionally or jovially or other social also sets a platform, because if we go into a school and we are performing, then they say, okay, people from Nigeria aren't so bad, and then we can give them more chances. But if we go in there and then we are like lagging behind and stuff like that, so I'm putting that pressure on myself every day to make sure that my work is good enough, so that next year they say, this Nigerian who was in this class was really good, let's take 2 Nigerians, or let's take 4, or let's take 5, whatever it is. So that's the goal. So make sure that when you're doing that application, you're not thinking of yourself also alone. You're also thinking of how this can affect the future generations, people who are also going to be looking towards you when you're in there. So you don't want to leave a room for them to say, oh, last year we gave a Nigerian the offer and then he messed it up, whatever it is, and then this year let's not consider them. So you want to, like, when you apply, when you're putting that application in, also, just don't think of the immediate thing. You think bigger picture, long goals, long term, and stuff like that.
Good point, value point. I'm happy that you said that. So next question is, can I apply without work experience? So I'm guessing this person is asking without work, maybe, I don't know, maybe without like practicing, like I used to.
And if that's what you mean, I hope that's what you mean. And the answer is, categorically yes. Like I said, I do have a classmate who was, probably fresh out of school or something like that. Maybe a 1 year experience, maybe even less. And we know people like that. I know a couple of people who weren't even in dentistry in the last couple of years, and then they morphed and then decided to go back into dentistry and stuff like that. So like I said, the big thing is that with every school, there's going to be a diversity. Like, if anybody tells you today that this is what the school is looking for, I can tell you that it's not probably true. Like, the schools look for different things and different candidates and stuff like that. So there's no one size fits all and says, this is a checklist. Does he have this? Does he have that? Does he have that? No. Yes, whatever it is. There's like a diverse thing. So they are more concerned about what you bring to the table. So for example, if I was fresh out of school and I'm applying, I want to show them what I've done while I was in school. Was I, going on code visits? Was I, involving myself in the environment and the community and stuff like that? Did I join the medical team to go for an outreach and stuff like that? And so basically, like I said, you already find yourself disadvantaged of the fact that you think that you have no experience. Okay. And how do you make up for that lack of experience? Is what you should be saying. You've done workshops, you've done CE courses, you've taken this and that and that. That for them shows them that, okay, this person, in as much as he has this disadvantage, is applying himself the proper way. And we feel that if this person is in our program, given the education he already has, fresh in his memory, he'll be able to excel. So that's how you just have to play it. Yeah.
Exactly, like, value point. And I also wanted to say that this person is looking at it as a disadvantage. You can whip it in a way that it becomes like an advantage.
Exactly.
Advantage. You can whip it in such a way that it becomes an advantage. And you just made a valid point. Like, you can stress the fact that the knowledge is fresh in your brain. And that's a valid point compared to those of us.
Yeah. I know. For me, it was hard going back to school. Like, my first day in class, I'm like, why did I do this anymore? Why? Like, it's been 10 years. I'm like, what are you thinking, Tayo?
And I was like,
oh my God, like, oh no, yeah. So so that, like I said, that you can spin that to your advantage. So you just have to spin it.
Yeah. All right. Then all right. So I answered this one already. Okay. So how do I study for INBDE?
Okay, good question. Like, I did the IMBD. I think that we did part 1 and part 2. I think also did part 1 and part 2. So I probably can say I'm qualified to talk about it. IMBD, like, I think, if I'm being honest, like, don't tell anybody anyways, it's a simpler exam than the IMBD 1 and 2. Like, it's like, for MBD 1 and 2, you have 300 questions for each exam. You have only 300 questions for the whole exam. So, like, obviously it's easier. They have less questions to ask you. And what I did for my own time was one of my the IMBD, for those, is very similar to part 2 of the MBD. It's very similar because most of your questions are clinical scenarios. They have a bit of physiology. So basically, it's more like the IMBD is more like the exams that you probably most schools do now. It's clinically oriented, basically. So they probably give you a scenario and try to add everything. So they might give you a scenario and say, this patient came into your clinic and has a high blood pressure of this and a body mass index of this, and the person is diabetic, and then they ask you, so they add a pharmacology into it and say, would you pre-medicate this patient? Would you, stuff like that? Or this person had a recent hip surgery. They ask the pharmacological aspect. They ask you the clinical implications, also saying this person suddenly goes into a cardiac arrest of your chair. What do you do at that point in time? So basically, they kind of like morph everything into those clinical scenarios that you're probably going to see in your clinic, basically. So it's more like you have to, like, the part 2 is very important for you to really revise. So in terms of study, if you have part 2 and the MBD part 2 materials, that will be your first go-to because it's very important there. I did watch a lot of videos. There's this group called Mental Dental, or this page called Mental Dental. He's very good. Like, back in the days when I was preparing for INDB was new, so he didn't have a lot of videos on IMBD, but he had a lot of videos on part 2. So I watched lots of part 2 videos. But now he does have a lot of videos on the IMBD. So that would be a good resource for you to also take. Then there's a lot of them, the Dentine, the First Aid. So them have. I had the Mastery app for a while too, probably a month or two, the subscription to use. So you cannot definitely do that too. There are a thousand of resources. But what you want, what I did for myself was I when I study, I try to figure out what works best for me.
Okay.
The app didn't work for me. It might work for you. So after 2 months of going back and forth, because I think my brain is kind of like a repetitive magnet. So if I see a question 2-3 times, I'm just going to know the answer. And sometimes the app gives you that. It gives you the capability, okay, this is the answer, but I want something different to challenge me. That's personal opinion for me. So so people prefer to study that way. So you have to figure out what works best for you. But beautiful resources that you can use, like I said, part 2 resources, First Aid, MBD, Dentine, there's this other one they call Kaplan, whatever it is. And those are very good resources. IMBD videos, MBD2 videos on YouTube via Mental Dental is very good. Osmosis has, so what I used to do also, there was a group called Osmosis on YouTube too. Osmosis is very good at explaining nitty-gritty of stuff. So if you do, because Mental Dental is like concise videos. So if it does explain a concept that you don't really understand, you could go back to Osmosis and watch the video on Osmosis. That particular video, Osmosis goes in depth on explaining how those things work. So but there are abundance of resources, like I said, First Aid, Dentine. Like I printed some of them out. I had them, printed some of the PDFs, the slides, and then you can review. But MBD2 more often than not is your go-to for IMBD.
Right, perfect. So we just have 2 more questions. Well, the other one is not really a question. Let me just take the first one then. So all right, so I guess this is a follow-up question because I think you mentioned something about you apply to European schools, or you try to do the European pathway or something. So I guess this is asking like, why didn't you? Sorry, let me just read that again. All right, so why not the UK?
Good question. So I didn't add that, but I actually considered that option too.
Okay.
Like I have a lot of family in the UK, so it was something. It wasn't my first or second choice, but it was an option I considered. And the UK is also a pretty, they have the ORE1 and ORE2. Recently, I was hearing there's a different pathway. I don't know details of it. I had this different pathway that you can also get into practice. I didn't pay so much attention to the person who was telling me about it, but I know the traditional pathway we all know is the ORE1, ORE2. ORE1 is basically just like writing a recent exam, and ORE2 is the clinical one where you have to it's like bench tests and stuff like that. So and they have their own specifications too. So yeah, the UK is a great resource too. Like the UK I find is also very similar to Canada because their exams are twice yearly, which is different from what I had in US, which is great about the US experience. Like the US experience, you can wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm motivated to take this exam. I'm going to go online, book a date, and you can do your exam. You can do it irrespective of the time. But for Canada, it's just twice a year. For UK, it's the same thing, September and something, maybe February, whatever it is. So they also have timelines on that. And so if you don't apply this cycle, you have to apply the night. So for me, I was considering the options because right now I have family in the UK and we're like, you come over to the UK. But honestly, I wanted to be close to Canada because I enjoyed Canada, allowed me to come in, gave me the citizenship, whatever it is. I became, enrolled in there. And, it's like my second home right now. So I'm like, I'm not looking for a new home right now. So I think I'm okay in Canada. So but the thing is, whatever works for you. Like some people, UK will work for them. Some people, Europe will work for them. Like I applied to schools in Europe, but when I was applying to Europe, I was applying for residencies because from Nigeria, you can apply to residency programs in Europe already with your degree. It's not like America here where they are very limited. You can apply to a lot of programs in Europe basically. So you just have to do the research. That's just what you want. You have to know what you want for yourself, do the research about what you want, and then just go for it. And if you have the money to, why not try ORE1? It's just £800 back then. I don't know how much it is now. And then ORE2 was £2,200. So so well that's trying to be nice. Don't convert it to naira, just leave it to pounds. 800 is not too much. Don't convert it to naira. Don't do that mistake.
No, that's all right. So this next question is, let me see, 1 second. So it's not really a question. So this person is just asking if they can contact you for more guidance. So we'll have that conversation if you don't mind me putting in your details, your email. So I'll just video and then wants to contact you. Or if you just prefer Instagram, so you don't want people sending you emails, we can do that as well. but we can have that conversation behind the camera.
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to help as much as I can. Like I know I've talked to people since I've been in here. Like one thing I believe in personally is like sharing your experience. You don't know who out there, and the reason, like, I did somebody on here who I actually met. Like, so I did something like this very similar with somebody in your class, with Wrinkle,
Okay.
a couple months back, and then I met somebody in my school one day and walked up to me and said, "I know you," and I'm like, "I don't know you." It was like, "Oh, I watch your IG live with Wrinkle," and you know, I had a couple of tidbits here and there. So, you know, it's like I said, it's always a bigger picture. So if I can help somebody out with one thing I say or do, or whatever it is, I'm happy to do that. So I'm happy to share my email with you. So that way we can have that conversation. We can put my email on there. If it's Instagram, I'm like you noticed at the beginning of this program, I was finding it hard to get on. I'm just not very
On
social media
Instagram.
savvy. I'm just terrible at social media. So Instagram is also great. You know, if you can reach me on there, I try to reply as much as I can. But yeah, emails are, you know, my emails I definitely check every now and then. So that would be good.
All right, perfect. Amazing. So that brings us to the end of this session. The end of all our IG live sessions. Oh my God, it's been a big month.
Yeah, and they're really informative actually.
Yep.
Thanks for hosting them.
I'm excited. Like, I'm grateful for you, for everyone who was a part of each of the live sessions. So you guys, that brings us to the end of today's live session. Thank you so much, Tyler. Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
Barb,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing more Nigerians in UCLA and LLU. Like for example, I heard that if I had gone to LLU last year or this year, whatever, that would have been the first time they were taking 4 Nigerians in LLU. And the first time, I was like, really? I was like, oh, probably I should have gone. so like, we're looking forward to next year, you know, improving the status quo, like, you know, next year, and seeing all Nigerians everywhere. And it's just going to help people like Dami too. When you're next year, when you're trying to do, and you have your support for options, and, you know, you want to go to Loma, you have 5 people you can ask for to do the live session. And, you know, if one person isn't available, the next person is, and you can probably have somebody, a representation in every school, basically, which is also good, because that way we can also build a network for ourselves, which is what has been happening. Because I feel that Nigerians haven't built a network for ourselves as much as we could. So I need to start as something. Damn, I'm challenging you on for the next thing, to start building a network of Nigerians in all the schools in US, and how we can, you know, form our own association and, you know, becoming a force to be reckoned with, and that's going to only just help us in the long run. All
right, we'll talk about that behind
the scenes.
All right, thank you so much. I think I've taken enough of your time today.
Yeah.
Amazing Sunday. Thank you so much to everyone who stayed tuned. We had a lot of stops today. Thanks for staying to the end. All right, so have an amazing week, okay?
Thanks, guys. All right. Cheers.